Hello there everyone, I'm Christina of CSLdesigns, and in today's tutorial I'm going to show you how to make this rosebud wirework ring. And this is what mine looks like. So you can see what we have here is three little cute rosebuds sitting on the top of the ring. And then we have a ring band going all the way around. It's nice and comfortable and also elegant. Fits the piece nicely. And then it looks a little something like this on. So there you go, you have the three little rosebuds just sitting on the top of the finger there. And in my case I kind of slightly graduated them, so you can see the middle one is larger and the two on the side there, one on either side, is slightly smaller. It's because I use different size beads. I just thought that gives a nice look. You don't have to do that, you can use the same size bead if you want to on all of them. I just quite like that look. But then this is what the ring looks like. So if you like this ring and you want to learn how to make it, you need to watch this tutorial here. But I've also made other pieces in this same technique, so you can really make a full set. So I have a bracelet, necklace and earrings as well, that's going to match it perfectly. What I'm going to do is put a link for the playlist for that in the description box below. You can check that out. But like I said, if you want to learn how to make the ring, keep watching this tutorial. So these are the materials that we're going to need. First of all, I have three different gauges of regular round silver coated copper wire here. And first of all, I have a 0.8mm. This is going to be the base wire and the structure of the piece. And then I have a 0.4mm wire here, which is going to be the weaving wire that we're going to make the ring band with. And finally, I have a 0.6mm wire here, which essentially is going to make the roses. And then to be the center of the roses and add a bit of color as well, I have these three beads here. Now there's two different sizes. I have a 4mm first of all, just a single one, and then I have two 3mm. This is to achieve a bit of a graduation in the effect. But if you wanted to, you could make sure you have them all the same size. That's completely up to you. You just have to make sure, regardless which beads that you use, that the holes are large enough to take a length of your 0.8mm through. And as for the specific beads that I'm using, they're all purple coated hematite gemstone rounds. I find that for gemstone beads, hematite tend to have pretty generous holes, so they tend to work well when you need to put them on a larger gauge base wire. Now you're also going to find the material list written out in the description box down below, along with links as well, so feel free to check that out if you need to. Otherwise, let's get all the materials ready and let's get started. And then we need to cut some lengths of our wire ready, and what I have first of all is a length of a 0.8mm of about 30 centimeters, and this is going to be the base wire. And then we need a length of the 0.4mm of about 80 centimeters, and like I said, this is going to be the weaving wire around the base wire. And then we also need a length of our twisted wire. So what I have here is a length of about 30 centimeters. So what I personally did was I took a length of the 0.6mm of about 70 centimeters in total, then I folded it over in half and then I twisted that together. So that ended up with about a 30 centimeter length here. Now it does depend on how tight you twist it. That will depend on the length that you end up being left with, but roughly about 30 centimeters. Obviously you can also just use a pre-twisted wire if you have that available to you. So then to begin with here, I take my length of the 0.8mm of the base wire that I've already cut, and then the first thing I do before we shape it or anything is I add my beads onto it. So I get them here in the middle, and I add them in the order of having the large bead in the middle and then a small one on either side, if you're using different sizes that is, just to get that nice graduation in. And then like I said, I'm making sure that they're roughly in the middle. And also, because obviously right now they're loose, I'm going to need to try and hold on to them to kind of sit in this position. It's not too important exactly in this position, but just roughly, because we need to make sure we have some space in between them, as I'm then going to start shaping the length of wire now. So for that I take my ring mandrel and I have my finger behind these beads just to try and hold them a little bit in place. Then I'm just going to place the beads here behind my ring mandrel to start shaping it, and also to start roughly getting the size in place. And I usually like to go about one size larger than what I need for this ring, because we need to do some weaving as well. So I just bring the sides all the way around here to come around so they then cross each other and lay flat next to each other like this, and then you can just flip it around to the other side and look at them here. You can see the beads have moved, but it's not too important or anything, just to make sure that they stay on this side here while we then bring these lengths up towards the beads again. So we have two wires basically laying next to each other all the way around, and then kind of meeting back up here on the side where the beads are. Now it's not 100% too crucial with the sizing just yet, because we can adjust that, but just get it roughly in the right size that we need. Obviously a little bit larger because we're going to do some weaving, and also because this, when we're shaping it like this, I like to go a little bit smaller actually as I'm shaping it. Just try and get these beads to stay there, and then kind of tighten it around the ring mandrel, because the wire likes to spring open, because then I bring it down to basically make it then fit. Just needs to tighten a little bit more. like that, because then it springs open a bit, which then will come down and fit the size that you want. So something like this here. So as you can see, the beads are going to keep moving around, but don't worry too much about that just yet. It's just important that we have this shape in place now, because then what we need to do now is I'm going to remove this from my ring mandrel, and then we actually need to start weaving the ring band around this area where we have the double wires right next to each other. And that's why we then need to get out the length of the 0.4 mil, so the weaving wire that we're already cut ready. Then I'm going to work towards one end of it here. So I have that little tail. I'm going to then put that through the actual ring band and just place it behind. I'm going to make sure to leave a bit of a tail, so a short length we can hold on to, but also that we can use at the end if we need to make a few more wraps or undo some wraps. Then I'm going to start kind of towards, just on one side and towards the end where the two base wires basically are starting to lay flat next to each other. And then first of all, we need to attach this weaving wire to the base wire. So I'm just going to hold on to. You can also start a little bit further down if you feel it's easier to hold on to, and then just push it up in a bit. We just kind of start on this one side, and then we need to wrap it around the bottom base wire of the two by itself first of all. And I do that by kind of making the motion of wrapping it around, but then pushing it through in between the two base wires, and then push it down through the ring band again to come out in the same direction that it was before. And then just pull the two lengths so it completely wraps nice and tight around that base wire, and we have the other length going out towards the top. And we're also going to go straight away into the weave that we're going to be doing. So I'm going to do the diagonal wire weave now, then bring it, the weaving wire here that we're using, over the top of both of the base wires, and then we need to go down through the ring band again, but we then need for the actual weaving wire to come out now between the two base wires. So push it out through and then push it down like that, so we make sure that all the wraps become nice and tight. Now wrap around the top one by itself and then just push it all the way down through the ring band, just like that here. And make sure that all your wraps are nice and tight together. It can also help using some chain nose pliers here, just to make sure that we can really get in there, because it can be a little bit difficult with your fingers sometimes. So there we go. And now you basically want to keep doing this for a bit. Now I recommend doing a couple of wraps. So this is one full round. Starting the new round, we do the bottom one by itself, so push it down through in between the base wires and then all the way down through the ring band there. Come out in the same way that we started out, except now it's already attached to weaving wires, so we don't have to worry about that. Then over the top of both of them to come out between the two. And you might find that your base wires are actually coming in a different direction, so there might be a different way of weaving it, but you'll find your own rhythm. So there might actually, this bottom one that's coming out have an end there, might actually be the one on the top. And we get further on here, you can actually be able to use this as the open end to make it easier to weave as well. But just find whatever way works best for you to weave this. In this case here, this is what I find works best with how my wires are going. Then come all the way through, and now this is another round. So like I said, do a couple of rounds here, because what you'll probably also find is that while you do this, this is going to go a little bit out of shape. It's not going to just hold its shape that we want it to. So I do a few rounds, and then we just need to double check that we've kept the size and shape that we want to. So now I've done about 4 rounds of the weave, because I also want to make sure that I don't do too many, because then it might get quite difficult to move. Because as you can see here, you can still move it along the base wires. Push it up or push it down. So I want to make sure that I can still do that. But first of all, I just want to double check my size and the shape. So I put it back on the ring mandrel and then bring it down towards the size that I was aiming for the shape in the beginning. Something like that there. And then obviously if it still looks fine, then that's absolutely fine. You can just take it off and continue. But if it's kind of moved a bit out of shape or grown a bit larger than you want it to, all you do is, because we can still move that weaving section that we've done, we can just pull these base wires tight to basically tighten up the shape if we need to, or adjust the size. Still making sure those beads stay towards the top. So that's how you can adjust it. And I recommend just checking it a couple of times here towards the beginning until you've done a few more wraps again, because then the base wires won't really move around so much anymore. But then all you do now that you're happy with this, you want to continue weaving the same weave. I want to make sure to push this up a bit to basically start somewhat close to the beads, but not too close. We still need a bit of space there, which is also what we can use this tail for at the end if we need to make a few more wraps, like I said. But continue weaving all the way around until you reach the other side, and then that's this side of the beads as well. So basically that's going to also help position the beads more in place so they're not going to move around as much. So now I made my way all the way to the other side here of the ring band, and I've finished up down here. Now what you just want to make sure to do is that we have enough spacing with the beads. So basically what we're going to need is about another size of the beads there in between each of them. So kind of separate them out like this where they're going to sit. Push them apart. Just to obviously make sure we don't weave too much or too little. So just like that. And also we then need a decent amount of space on either side there. So again, the space of one of the beads and a little bit more because we need to wrap the base wires as well. So this is where we ended up. But before we do any of that, what I want to now do is get rid of these weaving wires. So the way that you do that is just take a pair of flush cutters here. You've already wrapped them around the last few wraps there. And then I finished on the inside of the ring band. And then the last wrap that we did was a single one around that base wire. So you want to make sure the last wrap you do before cutting it off is a single wrap around a single base wire. So then on the inside here, I'm just going to go in and cut it off. Kind of place my pliers so they go right in between the two base wires. So just like that. Then I take my chain nose pliers and then basically go in and flatten it down, because right now you can feel it sticking out if you put your finger over it. Then you go in and flatten it down using your chain nose pliers. And then I also like to kind of roll it. It's going in this direction here, so I like to roll my pliers in that direction, which then tucks the very end in between the two base wires, which then gets rid of it obviously, because we don't want this on the inside of the ring band to catch or scratch on any skin. It needs to be nice and comfortable as we wear it. So like that, and obviously you want to do the exact same thing on the other end as well. So now we have our weaving wires done there. Then it's time to finish off the base wires as well before we do the little rosebuds right there around the beads. So just to show you on one side, what I'm going to do is take this open base wire, and we need to kind of open it up and then end up bringing it in and down through the ring band to the opposite side. So I'm basically bringing it underneath the other base wire that's lying right next to, all the way to the opposite side through like that. Then I need to push it down as much as possible, so it just as much as possible there comes straight out from where the weave finishes, and just smooth it out there. And then I want to wrap this around the other base wire where the beads are on a couple of times. Just bring it all the way around like that to then come back through the ring band again. Now make sure that when we wrap this, that we're wrapping this wire next to itself, so we don't kind of want to cross them over. And I also like to just have some chain nose pliers handy, or flat nose for that matter, because you can kind of want to twist the ring band a little bit. So just straighten that out and then wrap it again. So it's wrapped around one whole time now, and then it's during the second wrap. I'm going to bring that now to the other side. So there you can see, make sure the wraps are nice and close together. Can also then help push them together if they aren't completely with your flat nose. Flatten out the ring band, then bring this base wire to the opposite side, and now I want to cut off the excess. So what I'm going to do is take my flush cutters here, and a little bit towards the side I'm going to cut off the excess like this, and then make sure that we push that little end of the wire down nice and tight against the other wire, so finishing off that wrap so we can't feel it too much, because obviously this is also going to get a bit hidden, but just to make sure it's not sticking out too much, and tuck it away nicely. Now that's one side. Finish off the other side in the exact same way. So now finish off both of my base wires there on the sides, and then what you might find while doing that is that the ring band has gone a little bit out of shape in the whole shape of the ring there. Don't worry too much about that, because what we can just do is bring the ring mandrel back out and then place it back on there to then basically reshape it if we need to. I like to just try and keep the beads where they're going to end up sitting, but then otherwise push it down to obviously the size that it is, but just if you need to reshape it so it gets the original kind of round shape there, and it's going to sit nicely on your finger. So you can always do that now. But otherwise, all that's left to do now is get a twisted wire out here and start making the little rosebuds around the beads. So first of all, we just want to attach it. Now obviously the beads are still loose. Don't worry about that. Just kind of push them to one side for now, and I want to attach this length of twisted wire to the other side, just after where I did the wraps with the base wire. So just leave a short tail on the other side there and put it behind that base wire where the beads are on. Can be a little bit fiddly. First of all, we need to attach it here, so it's going to obviously stay in place, and then I'm going to take the long end and start wrapping it around that base wire, bring it back through the ring mandrel. So just kind of push it through however you need to, nice and gently. And make sure that that wrap is nice and tight. Smooth it out so it's ready for the next movement. And I like to just bring this end kind of back over as well. And that just kind of creates a little bit of extra wrap. But we don't obviously want to wrap too much because it's going to take up too much space. And then make sure it's all the way down. And what you can also do if you feel like it's a little bit difficult to get nice and tight, use your pliers to help squeeze it tight around that base wire. So there we go. Now what I want to do is bring down the first bead. So just going to take the very first one, which is the small one. And we then need to make a little rosebud around that. So it's coming out underneath there, out to this side. So what I need to do is start bringing it around the bead. So I like to hold my finger underneath and also a finger on top. Make sure this is all pushed all the way down. And just move around too much. And then I start bringing this length around the side of the bead. Just like that. And then I like to kind of basically rotate the ring. And as you can see, it still wants to move about. So just try and keep it in place as much as you can. Keep going all the way around, going over the top of the base wire there. Until we get a full circle. And again, I'm going over the top of the previous wraps that we've already made. Which is then also going to help save, well not save them, hide them, sorry. Bring it all the way around. So now we have the full circle. And then what I want to do, make sure it's still pushed all the way down. If it isn't, just keep doing that. Then we'll bring it around one more time, but making sure it's next to the previous round. So basically enlarging it. Keep pushing it down as we're doing this. And I like to make sure that they stay flat next to each other there, instead of starting to overlap or go under in some way, by having my finger one behind still, but then also one on top. I find that that really helps. We'll bring it still all the way around. Just like that. Until we then come back to this side, and now we've done 2 full rounds. Then what I do is I bring it around again, but I'm starting to now bring it underneath the other wraps that we've already done to kind of finish off this rosebud. And then what we need to do is make sure it's all sitting correctly, because we want these little rounds that we've done to sit around the bead, because obviously that bead isn't going to be the center of it. Then I take my length of twisted wire there and again bring it down through the ring band, because we then need to secure it in place all the way through. And then I do a wrap just like this here and come through again. All the way like this. So after this little rosebud that we've just made, we need to first of all secure that one in place, but also then get a wire here ready for the very next one. So what you can just do is just take a minute and check the first rosebud just to make sure everything sits how you want it to. Once you're then happy with the first little rosebud there, we need to move on to the next one. But before we can do that, we need to make sure the spacing is right. So if you imagine, if I bring that bead up now, and then we're going to start going around the bead, you can see that we actually don't have quite enough space, because we have the 2 rounds that we need to do 2 rounds again. So to accommodate for that, I'm actually going to do 1 extra wrap here around the base wire. I've already done 2, so this will make it the 3rd one. Bring it all the way through, nice and gently, and just keep, every time you've done this, straightening it back out. So just like this, make sure your wraps are always laying next to each other. So there we go. Now I have my wire in position to be able to then bring this bead up which is the large one, the middle one, because then as I start making the rosebud in the same way as I did there with the first one, it's going to be better for the spacing. So the rosebuds are going to lay next to each other instead of kind of overlapping a bit. So you just do this in exactly the same way. Start bringing, hold everything as tight as you can, make sure it's pushed down so that bead is nice and close as it can be to those wraps that you've just done. Start bringing a twisted wire then around the side of the bead, over the top of the base wire, and then keep your thumb on top of it and index finger below it. Hold it all in place and just start going around in circles. Get a complete one, and then you go around the outside of that one to make the next one, to kind of enlarge the rosebud, and keep going all the way around until we reach that original side. So we have 2 full rounds here now. Just adjust anything you need to along the way. If you need to adjust any shape or size of anything, better off doing that while we're here. Then once you completed that, make sure, like I said, that they're laying next to each other. I can see mine just wants to come under a little bit. So just lift it up, make sure it's going to stay in place, and bring it around and then underneath again, because we've done the 2 complete ones. So now I want to then bring this twisted wire back through the ring band to wrap around that base wire. So just like I basically showed you in the very first one, and then because the middle one here, in my case I'm using a slightly larger bead, this is going to be ever so slightly larger, we're just going to give that nice graduation. So do this with this one, finish that one, move on, bring up the last one and also do that one in the exact same way, and then we have all 3 rosebuds made. So when you've then done the last one there as well, we have the twisted wire coming after that second round that we did, out just below them. And then we're going to do the same principle as before by securing this. So bring it around the base wire, but bring it through the ring band. And also basically now we just need to finish this off. So the tiny little space that you have left around that base wire, bring it around again. And if you need to help, just squeeze it in a little bit. So obviously that's why we needed to leave decent space in between the beads, but also after on either end. So just like this. Bring it around, and basically just wrapping it once or twice there, whatever you got space for really, is what then secures that in place. So it's just more or less how we started out, but then we have the 3 little rosebuds there, a nice graduation. So all we've got to do now is finish off these twisted lengths of wire, and then we're going to have a finished ring. And to do that, I'm just going to get my flush cutters out here so we can cut off the excess, but get a nice clean cut so it's not going to irritate too much. So I'm just going to show you in the short end, easier to show you there. And then just go in after where it's last wrapped around and cut off the excess, making sure to only cut this very end that we want off. Get rid of that. Then, just like all the other times, take your chain nails and make sure to squeeze this in, because you can probably feel it a bit if you run over it with your finger. And obviously we don't want that. But then also these last 2 wraps, or the first ones depending what end you're looking at, are now going to also be hidden underneath kind of the petals there and the rosebud. So that also works out nicely. So do that, do the same on the other end, and then your ring will be done. So once you've finished off your ring here, then what you might find is while working with it still, it's gone a little bit out of shape again. So if it has, all you do to fix that is just get your ring mandrel and basically reshape it if you need to. And then once you've done that and you're happy with it, then your ring is done. And this is what mine looks like here. So it looks like this on, so really cute 3 little rosebuds sitting on your finger. In my case, because I use a different size beads, just slightly graduate it with the large one there in the middle. And then you have your comfortable and elegant ring band going all the way around as well. So I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Now if you like this ring, you might want to make a whole set. So I already have a bracelet, necklace and earring tutorial as well. It's going to match these perfectly. I'm going to leave a link to the playlist for all of them in the description box below so you can check that out easily. But otherwise, I really hope you enjoyed this one. Thank you so much for watching it, and I'll see you in the next one.